So there is a story out about Joe Biden because Joe Biden recently announced he will be running for re-election in 2024, which is a big news. It's a big deal because it was actually implied, or it was an inference based on maybe some implications, that Joe Biden would be a one-term president. He's extremely old. He's now, what is he, 78, I believe he is. He's already had, I think, 2 brain aneurysm surgeries. We see that his cognitive function has extremely declined at this point. He's too scared to even hold a public press conference. So he's already very old. All of that stuff is combined. And so a lot of people thought, and, I think it was like one of his private fundraisers or something, where he said that, his vice president needed to be somebody who could take the spot in case something happens, right? Like something like, remember what happened to John McCain? He had that glioblastoma pop out of nowhere, the very, very aggressive brain cancer. Something like that could happen to Joe Biden. He's 78 years old. He's very, very old. Something like that could happen literally any day. Any day in the next few years, something like that could happen, like it did to John McCain, where he had the glioblastoma. So it was sort of implied that he was a one-term president, given how old he was and how bad his cognitive function was. But now that he's saying he's announcing his, re-election for 2024, I mean, that's a pretty big deal. So this says Biden's plan for re-election freezes Democratic field. It reads, President Biden's announcement that he plans to run for re-election has frozen the field of potential Democratic contenders for 2024 and could mean a late start to the primary process if he changes his mind. Biden, in announcing his plans this week, hedged by referring to, quote, fate potentially intervening in his expectation to run. But even if his plans change, Biden has put the future on hold for the next generation of Democrats, many of whom are decades younger and lost to him in the 2020 primaries. That includes Vice President Harris, who would be in a prime spot to carry Biden's mantle if he decided to step aside. Democrats say it would have undercut Biden's presidency to make himself a lame duck at this early point, but they wouldn't be surprised if he claims to have accomplished much of what he set out to do and decides to leave on top after only one term. Quote, you certainly have to take him at his word that his intention is to run again, but 4 years is a long time, said Mark Longabaugh, a veteran Democratic campaign operative. By the way, that's the guy who worked on 2016 Bernie campaign. He's a beast. It creates an interesting dynamic if he decides to step aside. That decision would likely come very late and would truncate the nominating process, creating a potentially difficult environment. I think there will be pressure on him to formally announce his decision by the spring or summer of 2023. He would just be making himself a lame duck and giving up too much of his presidency if he announced that before. And so it just kind of talks about how it's going to be a very weird situation, essentially. Obviously, Joe Biden right now he's boosted by like crazy high approval ratings because of people hating Donald Trump and what he's done with coronavirus. So Joe Biden's numbers are heavily, heavily artificially inflated by that. And when is that going to wear off? Who knows? There's so many questions about this. Is Joe Biden really going to run again in 2024? Will he physically be able to run again in 2024? If he does not, when will we know that he's not running again for 2024? And who will throw their name in the ring? Who will be the person, right? Is it Kamala Harris? And then if you say it's Kamala Harris is the handpicked person, is Kamala Harris, does she have the support that Biden had during the 2020 Democratic primary? Does she even have Bernie Sanders level support that Bernie had in the 2020 primary? If Kamala Harris is the handpicked successor, as you guys know, it's very rare for an incumbent president in their own primary following being elected to have opponents. It's considered very taboo because it ruins a potential lead that the president could have. And since he already won, he's like, okay, well, let me run it back. If you win a championship in the NBA, you go, let's run it back, right? We can do this again. So if Kamala Harris is the handpicked successor, will anybody else challenge Kamala Harris? Will any progressives, Nina Turner, Ro Khanna, Bernie Sanders, AOC, will any of them run? I have no idea. And these are just the big glob of questions that come from the 2024 primary election. That's what's going to make this really interesting. Obviously, the Republican primary is going to be so fascinating just from a political science perspective as well. But man, there's so many questions to ask. And I don't really think Joe Biden will physically be able to run in 2024. So what happens as a result of that? I think most likely scenario, I think, is Kamala Harris will be the handpicked successor. She will run unchallenged, or maybe if she runs challenged, it'll be to a couple of people who aren't very significant. And then I think that she will probably win. Obviously she'll be the Democratic nominee. I have no clue what's going to happen in the general election. That's yet to be seen. But that I think Kamala Harris, one way or another, being the Democratic nominee in 2024, is the most likely chance, most likely outcome. Because I highly doubt that Joe Biden will be able to. I mean, the guy would be what? Would he be 82 by that point? If he's 78 now, he would have to be, he'd be like 82 by then. I mean, that's freaking insane, right? This is absolutely bonkers. We already see how horrible condition he's in. He's already had multiple brain aneurysms and had to have surgery for that. Clearly, the guy's not going to be able to hold up. So that's what I think is going to happen. It's going to present a really interesting vacuum, and who knows what's going to happen. But man, there's a lot of stuff to be foreseen in the future.